The COB is brought to you by Pepperstone, trusted by traders in over 160 countries. From Barangaroo Studios, here's what you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Welcome to the COB. I'm Juliette Sarli.
Hi, I'm Danny Akuye.
And Danny, another good day on the market. The third day of gains. We really can thank the commodities for this, although we've come off some of those earlier gains we saw around lunchtime.
Absolutely. Lost some momentum in the afternoon, maybe some risk just coming off the table. So there we go. CBO 200 up over just over 0.2% or 3 points, and the ASX 200 up by 0.25% and almost 20 points, Jules.
Yeah, and at one point, as you say, we've lost a little bit of momentum because at one point we had every sector moving higher, but towards the end of the day's trade, really utilities and miners pushing us towards the positive close. But let's have a look at our three themes, because we also talked about the fact that it's a bit of a healthy rally. It is a third day of gains, and those healthcare stocks, I mean, not the strongest performer, but there has been some really solid buying in the likes of Ansell, the likes of ResMed, perhaps people sort of repositioning as we kickstart, or I guess we're 2 weeks into the new quarter, but a little bit of rotation happening.
Absolutely, and the CSL, just worth pointing out, that was actually up 1.3% today. So healthcare doing very well, but also a little bit of a building boost, Jules, with those statistics. I haven't caught up with them, but you were telling me, was this activity
was
or approval?
Dwelling commencement, so only a small boost, but it was the December quarter, so it gave us a bit of an indication of the housing market. We know more homes need to be built, a lot more to meet demand, but total dwelling commencements up 1.3%, building of new private homes up 3%, but of course it's those apartments that are not quite keeping pace, and I just thought it was timely, particularly when we saw our friends across the ditch keep rates on hold at that 15-year high.
Absolutely, and of course we are all on, well, some of us are CPI watch. I checked the clocks, I think it's 10:30 tonight. Jules.
Yeah, I looked at Forex Factory as well.
If anybody is awake, but Andrew did remind me that we can't trade then, unless you're with Tiger Brokers. I discovered that you can trade with them earlier on. But of course it is important, potentially moving the dial on not only treasury markets but currencies. Interesting though, Jules, lots of people I've spoken to today about the CPI, they say if it comes in line, that's kind of bullish for markets.
Yeah, right.
Because markets, everyone's become very pessimistic. There's a lot of bad news cooked into it. So, I mean, there is the potential for markets to rally if it comes in lower than the 0.3 call. That's for the call for the month of March.
Yeah, a lot saying a make or break read. Let's have a look at some of those sectors we mentioned. Healthcare, I mean, not the strongest by the close. The sector up by about 0.5%. You touched on CSL though, up by 1.2%. Macquarie out yesterday with that really bullish call on CSL. Ramsay, Ansell looking good. Ansell continuing to rise. And let's flip the page. Is there a second health? No, we're going to miners now.
Yeah, so the big miners continuing to rally, and interesting, South 32 also one of the laggards receiving some love. So that was the winner today, up over 2%. But Rio Tinto continuing to be one of the favoured between the big miners because of its huge copper exposure in OreCorp. I always get it wrong. It's the Mongolian mine, so I'm not even going to try and get my tongue around that one. But also the fact that they are one of the more, well, they've got huge exposure to those iron ore prices.
Yeah, I liked as well, James Garish spoke to me earlier today about saying South 32 is their pick at Shaw and Partners as a proxy for the commodity moves too. Let's have a look at tech. Life 360. It's not on that page, but I believe Grady had a buy on that stock, closing pretty flat. Megaport, Ticker Data, Audinate and Iris had a little bit of a bad day today, down by almost 3%.
And some of the top stories. So Dubber has dismissed the CEO, Steve McGovern. My gosh, what a story this one is, Jules. $30 million disappeared, and they're still trying to track it down. And the stock has actually been in a trading halt since March the 1st. It's come back onto the boards. I thought it was back on the boards today.
No, it is in a hold.
It's still in a hold.
Yeah,
They're
we
still
probably
raising.
shouldn't have there, but it last traded at 22 cents.
Yeah, but they've done a huge fundraising today to basically try and replenish some of that capital at a very deep discount.
We also got Perseus Mining in there, down 2%. Silvercorp accepting the company's takeover offer for OreCorp.
And other gold miners that were on the move, Coronado Global Resources, that one up by 3%.
And Ansell also extending its rally. We mentioned that at the top of the board there, so up by 3.4%. ResMed, of course, in focus there too.
And now we are going to welcome our friend Henry Jennings from Marcus Today to the COB. Henry, how are you?
Good afternoon, I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Good. Look, a lot of action at the sort of mining commodities end of the spectrum, which is a place that you like to play in. So tell us about your thoughts on something like Metals X.
Tolgoi is the pronunciation.
I know,
Daniel.
thank you. I thought of it afterwards. Oya Tolgu, Tolgai, yes.
Tolgoi.
Tolgoi.
I think that's how you say it. Well, as far as the resources go, I mean, let's face it, we're on a bit of a resource boom at the moment. I know it's sometimes hard to believe, and I guess, sometimes we don't realise we're in a boom until it's actually passed. With the exception of things like iron ore and lithium, things in resources are going pretty well, let's face it. We've even seen the likes of zinc and tin pushing higher, some of the soft commodities doing well, cocoa and coffee. Certainly those two have been highlighted, especially cocoa before Easter. We've had the copper, of course, pushing higher as well. We've even had things like manganese, coal doing okay. Lithium has even perked up a little bit. And of course, iron ore bouncing off that $100. So we have seen quite a good response, I guess, to that. The gold stocks today, a little bit disappointing given that we had record highs in bullion, not doing much in Aussie dollar terms and maybe just taking a little bit of a breather with the likes of Northern Star down around 1.5%. But it's all about the iron ores, I guess, bouncing back, and some of those base metals as well. We've even had things like Metals X, MLX, having a good day today. Of course, they've got 50% of the Renison tin mine in Tasmania. So but there's quite a bit going on in resources. And just when you thought the market had kind of topped out and stalled a little bit, with the banks looking a bit toppy, we have seen the resources kind of pick up the baton and sprint off around the track again. So that's kind of positive for our market, of course, tonight. Well, anything could happen.
Well, indeed. We'll get your thoughts on CPI in a moment. But speaking of the baton, it looks like your friend, your pal Zip that you liked around Christmas time also taking the baton again.
Yeah, Zip. I was kind of hoping it would come back. I had a price target when I tipped it back at Christmas time at around $1. Went cruising past that and went to $1.50 plus. And I was hoping it would come back to under $1 again. But unfortunately, not to be. They picked up today. I guess, the strength of the US economy continues, and we are seeing, consumers in the US continuing to spend, open their wallets. They're just paying for things in a different manner. We do have also an update coming from Zip just before Anzac Day as well. So maybe the markets are punting on better times ahead in terms of that announcement as well. So unfortunately, I was a little bit slow to pick that one back up again, but looking pretty good today.
And tell us, Henry, what is Gina Rinehart? She looks like she's back being quite active again.
Well, she does. She has been quite active. She's popped up on the register of a company which used to be called Molycorp, which is a rare earths business in the US. MP Markets, it's now called. So she's popped up on the register there. She does have a little bit of a thing at the moment for rare earths. Of course, she is also involved in Arafura, ARU. But where the market was getting very fixated on the other day was the takeover for Azure, which is a lithium stock. Now, Gina and SQM have got together in terms of that one to buy that one. 370 is the bid, or 365 if it doesn't get the vote. The shareholders overwhelmingly voted in favour. It did crash on the same day of the vote, mainly because there was a note put round by one of the brokers suggesting that it might have Foreign Investment Review Board issues in getting through, because SQM has got Chinese ownership, or at least some Chinese ownership. It hasn't got majority, but there are certainly Chinese interests in that one, SQM. But you've got to say that if you cut Gina's wrists, or you cut her at all, her blood would run Aussie, red, white, and, well, the Aussie flag for sure. So I would find it quite strange if the FIRB were to knock back that bid. There is an extension there, but at the moment they got down to around 325 the other day. They're back up to 347. The bid, as I say, is 370. So there's a little bit of money in that. But of course, there is a risk that the FIRB will or won't, I guess, knock that one back. But it does seem unlikely, I must admit.
What about any risks, in terms of positioning ahead of CPI tonight? You were saying potentially nothing happens.
Well, I guess, it's one of these numbers that you would think has been so well researched by every man and his dog in the States that they shouldn't be too far wrong. We're going for sort of the core 0.3% and 3.7% for the year. So, if anything, I guess, majorly different from that could spook the horses in the US. But certainly, it's been quite weird watching how the US market has behaved, given that at one stage earlier this year, we were going for 7 rate cuts from the Fed. Now we're down to 2 or 3, and some people saying no rate cut at all. And given the strength of the US economy, you do wonder why it needs a rate cut. Apart from the fact that Jerome Powell and the board of the Fed have kind of boxed themselves into a bit of a corner, having promised to deliver those rate cuts. They're now under a bit of pressure to actually follow through on that, which does kind of go against where the US economy is. And of course, as we get closer to the election, it gets more political as well. And of course, Donald Trump is not a great fan of Jerome Powell, I don't think, despite the fact that he appointed him. So if we do get later in the year and we go through the May meeting and the June meeting without any rate cuts, then there is that political element that does come into it. So it's going to be tough. I would imagine we'll be bang in line with the CPI number tonight. The market will go, okay, well, let's look at the next one, because that's what markets do. We've got PPI coming as well. And we'll be looking at that one. And then, of course, we've got reporting season. So it may be a bit of a nothing burger, and we may have, got all excited and all in a tither about nothing. Well, we'll see.
I know. I was thinking the same thing earlier on today after such a hullabaloo about these 2 readings.
Oh, it's it's just
every month.
Let's face it, they've got to punt on something. I mean, being a bond trader wouldn't be the most exciting thing for the last decade with 0 rates, pretty much. And finally, they've got their day in the sun in the last year or so. They've got to make the most of it, I guess.
Keeping journalists employed as well,
exactly.
Henry. Have a good one. Henry Jennings there from
Thanks,
Marcus
guys.
today. All right, let's have a look at what we saw in terms of the after-close leaders and laggards, kicking it off with the gains of the day today, I believe.
Whoa, we have jumped ahead too far. Jules, we are going to do stock of the day. And it was CSL, Andrew Page from strawman.com and Michael Wayne from Medallion Financial share their thoughts on our huge biotech company, CSL.
Really have to do the heavy lifting here. But I will say this: it's one of those no-brainer companies for those that prefer a more passive kind of approach, because it's the kind of business that even if you overpay, given enough time, it won't be terrible. So depending on where your position and what your time frame is, I would say it's almost. I think it's a reasonable buy.
So we're still optimistic. The share price took a big beating a couple of months ago because the market was factoring in some successful clinical trial results. Those clinical trials didn't prove to be as successful as many were hoping, so there was about a $30 drop in the share price as a result. But on a long-term basis, that was more a one-off in nature. So yeah, our view is we're happy to hold and buy CSL at these levels.
Right.
I just have to let you know, Jules, that's a double buy on CSL today, a double buy on CSL yesterday, and a double buy last week when Andrew did the call on CSL. So I don't know, is that a triple double buy?
Yeah. Is there anyone that has it as a sell? That'd be interesting. All right, I got ahead of myself, but here we are with the market leaders. Let's have a look. Chalice Mining off in there. Liontown, Star Entertainment, Smart Group there as well.
And some of the laggards in today's trade: WiseTech, Global, Iris, IAG, Ramelius and Perseus. So of course, some of those more interest rate sensitive stocks that have run really hard, seeing some profit taking, WiseTech being a case in point.
Indeed. All right, in the small end of town, St Barbara, of course, this gold rally lifting it by 21%. Appen, Kinetico Energy, Lindian Resources, Latin Resources. So a bit of a resources theme with a touch of tech.
Absolutely, and some of the smalls that were lagging today: Brockman Mining, Bowen Coal, Bubs, Immutep and Legacy Iron Ore. Now, Jules,
You get the prize if you know what's happening tonight.
I was about to say, can we guess what's happening tonight? Oh, let me think about it. The US CPI, not the PPI. I think we have to wait another 1 or 2 days for that. We've also got the Bank of Canada policy, well, the Central Bank of Canada meeting, which I think could be quite significant because it's interesting, Jules, both them and the ECB might be the two central banks that could diverge from the Fed and lower first. And we've also got US crude oil inventories.
Yeah, and really interesting commentary from Mohamed El Arian as well, saying that exact same point. Let's have a look at what we have tomorrow.
Yes, well, nothing down under by the looks of it. We've got China CPI and PPI. And
well, UK is looking very far out, isn't it? We're getting very excited there. And ex-dividend, what's COS? COS.
It is a fashion label, but I think it's called COSOL. So
COSOL, there we go. She had written it for us and I hadn't scrolled far enough.
Going ex-dividend. So really tomorrow it is going to be a case in point of probably markets will be responding to what happens in the US. Any commentary around the CPI, I don't think we get Fed speak, but that will be closely watched, and clearly what happens in the treasury markets, because bond yields have been moving higher and the share markets remain very sensitive to those bond yields, and they also impact the US dollar, which of course has implications potentially for the commodities complex. So it'll either, as Henry says, be a complete nothing burger, or it might be on for young and old, so we'll have to wait and see.
A nothing burger with fries maybe. All right, let's have a look at where the market is. A 0.2% gain on the SIBO 200. Similar on the ASX 200?
No, it actually closed up a little bit higher by 0.3% or 24 points to 7,848. So we had lots of great interviews today. If you're a trader, do catch up with Tony Sycamore, because had a great chat to him about what to do CPI. Ditto, we had a really fun chat with Chris Weston, who named gold a momentum beast.
Yes.
So if you want to check up on what to do with gold, check out that interview.
And we'll bring you all the ramifications of that CPI print, everything that is going to happen tomorrow from 9:40 Eastern.
Have a great evening.
The COB is brought to you by Pepperstone, trusted by traders in over 160 countries.
Gil.
Oh, hey, Ken.
Here we go.
You still trading?
Pepperstone. Trusted in over 160 countries. You?
Well, I'm still with...
I don't think anyone trusts them.
No, I'm fine with it. Just like I'm fine with my trusty coach. 1980s John McEnroe.
Pathetic! Horrible! 1980s, huh? So, really temperamental?
Keeps me on my toes.
Awful! It's a bit intense.
Be better!
Still fine with it.
Use your racket!
He's just staring at us.
Yeah, sometimes he yells and then sometimes he just stares.
Is he aiming for your face, Gil?
He's fine with it!
Yeah, he's definitely trying to hit you.
Fine with it.
Don't be fine with it. Switch to Pepperstone, trusted by traders in over 160 countries.
Come on, you cannot be serious!
Don't do that.
Ow.